Hello and welcome. Hi, Jonathan. Nice to see you again. So happy Open Education Week. We have another session today. This week we've had three sessions, or I guess this is the third session. We had an introduction to OER on Tuesday. We had a session on delivering OER on Wednesday, and both of those recordings are available over on the OER Community Corner page on Engage. So if you're interested, go check them out there. And this will also be recorded, and the recording will be available there. So like I said, this is the info session on the OER Publishing Support Program. Before we get started, going to provide a land acknowledgement. So Athabasca University respectfully acknowledges that we live and work on the traditional lands of the Indigenous peoples of Canada. We honor the ancestry, heritage, and gifts of the Indigenous peoples and give thanks to them. In terms of who is supporting you in this program, we have McKinley Darlington, the new interim director of AU Press. Here's myself. I'm the OER librarian over at the library. And we are also joined by Kyle Flemmer, the OER project coordinator. As for myself, I live in the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. So that includes the Sinawas people, the Comaps First Nation, and the Qualcomm First Nation. And Kyle, would you like to share where you're from?
Sure, yes, I'm tuning in from Treaty 7 territory, Calgary, which is traditionally known as Mohkinstsis. It is at the confluence of the Bow and Elbow rivers, which has been continuously inhabited for at least 10,000 years. So this is a beautiful place to be situated.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm going to give us a little overview about what we're going to chat about today. So primarily, this session is about the OER Publishing Support Program, but I am going to give us some background info to get us started and have a strong footing and a shared understanding. So we're going to start with an introduction to OER, ways to create and use OER. Then Cal's going to talk about the OER Publishing Support Program, what we're looking for, and some info about what happens to the OER after they're published. Then I'm going to do a quick Manifold demo. We're going to walk it through live and see what's available there and what you can do. And then we're going to talk about some library resources that are available. If there's time at the end, we'll take any questions you might have. Let's jump right into what is OER. Well, if we use the UNESCO definition, open educational resources are teaching, learning, and research materials in any medium, digital or otherwise, that reside in the public domain or have been released under an open license that permits no cost access, use, adaptation, and redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. So that's kind of a mouthful, but a quick way to think about it is to really focus on that word, adaptation. OER are education resources that you can legally make changes to. If you're not sure if something is an OER or not, you can use the 5 R's of OER to kind of make that determination. So with OER, you are legally allowed to retain a copy, revise a copy, that means basically just make changes, remix, which is to combine different OER together, reuse, of course, and share or redistribute. So when you find a work that has an open license on it, you can take a look and see what that license allows you to do. There are many advantages of using OER. Just a few of them include cost savings. That's a big one. So you can all remember back in your time when you were in school, when you had to pay an absurd amount for a textbook, sometimes up to $400, and you had to recoup that money somehow by reselling it. Maybe there's a new edition out, education is expensive and it's getting increasingly expensive. So there's huge benefits for students. There's also cost savings for institutions that subsidize the cost of resources. So here at AU, we have a standardized CMF or course materials fee. Now that changes over the years. It's 80 something right now, 88 maybe, $88. So for some textbooks, the university is making money, but for most, they're losing money. So when we're able to save that course materials fee, it's a huge burden off the university as well. One of the other obvious advantages of OER is that they're free to modify. So if you find that there's an OER out there, an educational textbook that you really like, but maybe the examples are American, or maybe they're just a little bit out of date, or they're in a different language, you can change that, which is a huge advantage. They're also easy to have an easy to understand licensing system. So they use a Creative Commons licensing system. I won't go into too much depth on that today, but just know that it is covered in my other webinars. One of my favorite advantages of using OER is that they're accessible anywhere, anytime. So students can start using them way before their course starts, at any point. They can keep them for the rest of their lives, and they can also download them legally and carry them with them, whether that's on their personal devices or on a USB stick with a PDF, anything like that. So I wanted to cover the three types of ways that you can use OER. The first is kind of obvious, is adopting OER. You can find an OER out there that you really like and just reuse it without modifying it. The advantage of that is obvious. You don't have to do anything, right? The disadvantage is that there might be some things you do want to change down the line. Maybe you want to change, make it more accessible. Maybe it's just a PDF, something like that. But the good news is that you can always change it later. Adapting is similar. You're just making changes to it. This could be as small as just making error corrections, or it could be as large as cutting entire chapters out of it, maybe even adding your own chapters. Thirdly, we have remixing OER. So this is combining multiple OER together. It's important to make sure that your licenses are compatible. I'm going to talk a bit about more in depth about this next. So when it comes to remixing OER, like I said, maybe you like parts, not others. You can mix and match different chapters, sections, entire books. And there's two ways you can do this. You can either make a remix or a collection. So a remix, we like to use these food metaphors in the OER world. You can think of it as a smoothie. So you're taking all these individual intellectual properties that have compatible licenses and mixing them all together so that the end result, the end product, is indistinguishable. You can't pull out different parts of it. Conversely, we have a collection, which is like a TV dinner. So you have clear delineations between different types of content. So in a collection, you can actually have OER with different licenses that aren't compatible, because you are clearly saying to the readers that, hey, this part has this license and this part has that license. Technically speaking, you can even include copyrighted material. So if you can get permission for copyrighted material to use it in an OER, you could. Maybe that even includes an image. So that just gives you an idea of some of the ways that you can use OER and some of the ways you might want to approach publishing an OER to the press. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kyle. And Kyle, just let me know when I can switch to the next slide for you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dan. So AU Press is very pleased to be offering the OER Publishing Support Program. And this initiative provides comprehensive support for the development of accessible, consistent, high-quality, openly licensed resources for Athabasca University courses. It's primarily geared towards helping AU faculty adapt or remix existing OERs and republishing them in a format that is consistent with AU course materials. So the Publishing Support Program offers several tangible supports, including project management, copy editing, typesetting, design, file conversion and creation, and ISBN and DOI registration. These are sort of the brass tacks of what is involved in the publishing process. My job as the OER project coordinator is to help connect the author or remixer of the incoming OER project with these services. Sometimes we might contract a third-party copy editor or subject matter expert in order to review the material before it proceeds into typesetting and design, and then publication. These are sort of the main supports that we offer, but there's flexibility built into the support program as well. So we should be able to entertain various ideas and in the hopes of supporting any new or innovative practices that you'd like to explore via your OER. The main philosophy here is that of working together. So successful applicants are guided through the publication process. I hope to maintain clear and consistent communication and collaboration with course production staff as well. And that way we are able to meet the course production deadlines. And then the structure of the course dovetails nicely with the OER materials. And you can switch us to the next slide there. So when we're looking for new OERs through the OPSP program, there are a few things that we're after. First of all, we're very eager to connect with OER-ready authors. And what this means, an OER-ready author is someone who is highly confident in their selected OER. So they have a very strong grip on what's in there and what perhaps needs to be revised or adapted. They have a clear vision of the final output. So whether that's similar to a traditional textbook or whether it is a combination of various media types, we want to have a clear articulation of that vision. And we're looking for authors who are focused on the content of the OER rather than the technology. We are very eager to explore, as I said, these innovative ways of delivering educational resources, but we also need to be very conscious that it is the content that is the most important factor. So let's take a quick look at publication-friendly content. Through the OPSP, the support program, yes, we're looking primarily for text-based materials, so similar to your traditional textbook. However, these materials, as you'll see later when we do our live demo of Manifold, these materials can be supplemented with various other media types, let's say embeddable videos, or exercises, examples, interactive quizzes, that kind of thing. However, we're hoping that the bulk of the material is primarily text-based because this dovetails quite nicely with what AU Press is able to support with our various expertise and talent pool. Publication-friendly content often comes from existing openly licensed materials that are already primed for adoption, adaptation, or remixing. So if you found a very strong OER to adapt, that is a clear signal to us that we're ready to move forward. The content should be comprehensive, accurate, and organized in such a way that it will not become obsolete in a short period of time. We are only able to revisit previously published OERs after about a 3-year period, so it needs to be stable for at least that period of time. And finally, we are looking for material that is course and institution agnostic so that it can exist as a standalone resource. We are primarily interested in supporting AU and AU courses and AU faculty. However, these materials will ultimately need to stand alone. So examples can be drawn from AU processes, but the text itself shouldn't be specific to AU as an institution, in the sense that we would like to encourage other institutions to adopt our OER if possible. Next slide, please. So once we have moved through the publication process and we are ready to start sharing your OER, the primary place where it will live is under the Remix imprint offered by AU Press. The Remix imprint is relatively new, and so far we've published 3 OERs via the imprint. You can find all 3 via the AU Press website. These are all hosted online. They can be downloaded in various formats, and they can also be accessed via our online reading platform called Manifold. And Dan will give you a little bit more information about the other places that your OER will be able to be accessed.
Yeah, so once I get the finished copy, I'll take it and publish it on various repositories around the world. So those can be globally accessed by anyone at any time. They can take your work and they can remix it themselves. So it's really a huge part of the promise of OER is that your work lives on beyond just your current use. So it's a great opportunity. So I think next we have sharing your work with others. Yes. So I just wanted to talk quickly about the license that we use at AU Press. I say we, I'm not part of AU Press, but we work together. So in the program, we use a CC by NC license. Sorry, CC by NCSA license. So I'm going to break down this license for a bit for you so you really understand what that means for you as a creator. So CC, of course, stands for Creative Commons. BY ensures that whoever adapts it has to attribute it to you as the original creator. It'll also be hyperlinked so that they can always find your original work again. The NC means that others may not use your work commercially or profit in any way from it. A common question is, can I use it in an AU course? If it has an NC on it, the answer is yes, you can, since you're not charging for that specific work. The last part of the license is an SA license. So this makes sure that others cannot release your work under a more restrictive license. What that means is people can't take your textbook and then add a no derivatives clause on it or something like that that prevents others from making changes. So essentially, it acts as a little lock on the license, making sure that no one can change it. Both the license and the title of the resource must be hyperlinked. The license itself will be hyperlinked to the license terms on the Creative Commons website. So it'll be super clear to everyone how they can and cannot use your work. And let's see here. Next steps. Yes. So what can you do to get involved? Well, the first thing you can do is select your OER. So if you are ready to apply for publishing support, I'm here to help you guide you through that application process. But if you're not sure if you found the right OER, or maybe you haven't found any OER at all, I can help with that. I offer an OER finding service. It usually takes me about a week, and I can give you a comprehensive list of what's available in your subject area. Another thing, the last step, of course, is to submit an application form. So once you're confident in your research choice, you can request the application form. You can either use oer@athabascu.ca, or you can just email me directly. I can submit on your behalf. We can have a little reference interview and chat through the application, or you can just do it on your own. One thing to note is that the application window opens every January. While this year's has passed, there is space potentially for more applications. So don't hesitate to apply, and we'll see what we can do for you. Now it's time for our Manifold live demo. So please bear with me as I switch screens here. I'm going to pull out of there to my slides. Hop on to aupress.ca. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see? Perfect, thank you. So if you want to see what published OER might look like, excuse me, you can head over to the AU Press website. Again, that's aupress.ca. At the top, you can go to publications. I'm sorry, this is my third presentation. I'm losing my voice. You can browse publications by imprint. So we'll go there. The second imprint is Remix. This is where the OER Publishing Support Program releases its OER. Once you're here, you can see we have 3 of our titles. Click on the first one. And I'm just going to walk you through the launch page, and then we're going to look at the work in detail. I think it's F10, maybe F11. Yes, there we go, full screen. So the first option you have is you can read it online. You can download it as a PDF, or you can download it as an EPUB, which is super awesome that you have this choice of different formats. So maybe a student wants to send it to themselves as an email. They can download a PDF. Maybe they want to read it on their e-reader. That's perfect for an EPUB. These are all reflowable. PDFs aren't, but the EPUB and the online version is reflowable. What that means is instead of when you zoom in, the text getting really big, it'll reflow so it fits those lines. I'll do a little demo of that once we get in there. This one has an answer key, which is awesome. And then it gives you just a brief introduction. Let's go right into Manifold here. This is what the Manifold launch page says. So like the previous page, you have a start reading, you have your downloads here. You also have your table of contents. So if you want to browse it this way, you can. There's also a search button if you want to search for specific phrases. You'll notice that I'm signed in here. This gives me the option to bookmark different sections, chapters, even books, which is super awesome. Let's jump right in. All right. So this is Critical Thinking, Logic, and Argument, an introduction by Eric Dayton and Kristen Wardier. So Kristen had this really amazing opportunity to adapt a previously commercial textbook that was she worked with in the past. And Eric Dayton was kind enough to agree that it could be released under a Creative Commons license, and then she would adapt it for her course. So I'm going to jump into some text here, just skipping through some chapters. Let's go here to section 1.3. So there's a few things you can do. First thing you can do is you can highlight text and keep it highlighted. So I can go highlight. But let's say I'm working with a class, or perhaps I'm working with a small team, maybe we're working an assignment together. We can change the current group to the other folks that are in that group with you. So it's really great for collaboration. Maybe you're reading and you want to take a note. You can also highlight a word and you can annotate it. Test, for example. And every time you come to the book, you will see that note. Which word did I highlight? Yeah, capable, right? Yeah. So you can view those at any time. And then I wanted to show you how the other text options you have. So this is the list of all my highlights and annotations. You can hide or view which ones are yours and which ones are public annotations. And then for text, you can change it to serif text if you want, or sans serif text. Maybe that depends on what works for you. Maybe that depends on your device. You could have a nighttime reading mode, which is super awesome, easy on the eyes. And then we can change the margins. So this is where I can demonstrate that reflowable text. So I'll show you what a zoom looks like first. The zoom will change the text, right? Make it really big. And then, oh, this is reflowing it. Great. Set that zoom. But in terms of margins, we can make it larger or smaller. Maybe you're reading on your phone and it's just a little bit easier to have smaller margins. It's really handy that way, in a way that a PDF isn't. PDFs are essentially images, so not a whole lot of flexibility there. Kyle, is there anything I should add about the functionality of Manifold, or maybe some cool examples from other books?
Well, maybe I'll add to your point about the reading groups, just to say that there are different tiers of reading group. So you can make them private. You can make them like semi-private, so only the people within the class can share and see each other's annotations, or they can be public, so that if people are interested in joining a public reading group and participating that way, that's a possibility. The other piece that I'd like to address is some of the formatting. So Dan, maybe if you'd scroll down a little bit until you can find like a colored block of text. Yeah, like right there. One of the advantages of using Manifold is that we're able to format things in different ways. Let's say you have examples throughout all of your chapters. We can format them in such a way that they jump out immediately. Pull quotes, important terminology, summary questions. You dream it, we can make it look special. We can make it look just the way that you want it to be. We can also link between various parts of the OER. So if you refer to a term that was defined in a previous chapter, we can jump from one place to another. If you have all your terms collected in a glossary at the back, we might be able to link there as well. Suffice to say, this kind of document is much more engaging, interactive, and the parts about its structure are very clear. So it makes using it as an educational resource, it's a very powerful tool. These are the kind of things that I like to think about once an application has been approved and we sit down with the author who's adapting or creating a new OER. We want to define what the structure is and what these various parts that we're going to use. If you have each chapter has like a tip or remember or whatever, we can build the project around the important pieces that you'd like to have present in the OER.
And Kyle, we support multimedia, is that right?
Yes, we're
Awesome.
not some forms of multimedia are very easy to incorporate. For instance, if a video has been uploaded to YouTube, embedding that video into the OER is very easy. We do need to make some sort of concessions. Let's say if in the PDF format, we might have to have a placeholder rather than the embedded video, or a link, a clickable link that will take you to YouTube. But figures, charts, tables, all that kind of material is quite easy to integrate with into this platform.
Awesome. I think it's worth mentioning that a huge advantage of using the OER Publishing Support Program is that there's a home for your OER. A lot of folks currently just adopt OER at AU. They use the text as is, and they have to link out to external sources to serve that to students. This works currently, but it's a little risky long term as folks may have depreciated access. You don't want to lose access to your main textbook in the middle of a revision, something like that, right? So this really guarantees a stable place where folks can access the text. I'm going to jump out now, back this way, F11, back to our slides. I know there's hotkeys for that, and I'll have to remember them next time. And we really hope that you're interested in the program, excited about OER, and excited about Manifold and all the possibilities there. To help you really get started, the library has a bunch of resources. So we do have a guide on OER. You can learn more about copyright, licensing, Creative Commons, OER, all at your own pace. So that's a LibGuide, and you can find all these links over at the community corner on Engage. We also have an OER by discipline guide. So this is something I put together every year. I revise it and make sure all the links are up to date. Basically, what I've done is I've mapped AU's courses to available OER. So you can browse by subject areas, you can search by keyword, or you can search by course code, and you can see if I've recommended any textbooks for your course. And the next thing we have is a open community of practice. So if you're an open practitioner of any kind, if you're into open data, open access material, maybe you're just curious about open licensing, well, this is the place for you. It's a really casual space. We meet quarterly just to chat, stay up to date, see what each other's doing. And we usually have a focus of each meeting. So our next meeting is actually next week, the 12th. And it will be at noon Mountain Time, and we'll be talking about open futures. So kind of discussing what's happening in the open licensing world and where we might go. We'll also be taking a sneak peek at our OER faculty survey results, which, by the way, is still open for one more week. So if you have the chance, please fill that out. Like I said, you can find the links to all these resources over on the OER Community Corner on Engage. This is really the hub for all things OER at AU. I post news, I do faculty features, events that are happening, interesting links. It's really the place to be, so please join us there. Finally, we have time for any questions you might have. I'm going to make sure that you all have microphone access. It looks like you do. Great. And you can jump in at any time or raise your hand, whatever you'd like to do. Dr. Lawton Shaw, please go ahead.
Oh, please don't call me doctor.
Okay.
This is AU, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll preface my questions by letting you know what I'm thinking about when I attended this. I've got an environmental science 200 class, so it's a junior level science course. Fantastic textbook I've been using for quite a while. It's a Canadian edition of a standard book from the US. The problem is the Canadian author has retired. They're not doing any more updates on it, and environmental science changes over time because it's, as you can imagine, the world is changing constantly. Information is new all the time, and we've got this text that's getting staler and staler by the day, and there's no equivalent commercial book available anymore. So I'm looking at OERs. I've done some looking around for things that I could adapt, and it doesn't quite hold the candle to the commercial books because I guess one thing is the figure content, the scientific figures and the drawings and illustrations are off the charts compared to what you just showed, like a text-based kind of OER. So I wonder if you could comment on just how much support there would be to adapting illustrations and figures, be they, previously made open source sort of things or even new figures that we had to generate.
Totally. That's a great question because we've actually encountered that before. So I demoed that philosophy textbook. And I think what the case was with that particular book, if I'm remembering correctly, is that some of the illustrations in the commercial textbook were had a different license, so we couldn't reuse them. And Kristen added quite a few chapters, so she wanted to add her own illustrations.
Hmm.
So through the publication process, she would literally make napkin sketches of different illustrations she wanted. And um, as part of the program, we were able to outsource a illustrator who would make those work with Kristen and make those professional. In terms of what's available out there, it's a mixed bag. There may be illustrations that you could use. I'm thinking if it's really modern content, probably not.
Yeah.
But maybe we can take a look and see. There are some big OER publishers who try to keep their OER up to date. They release new editions every year. And sometimes they're really hard to find. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to do a search for you.
That'd be good because, I'm an amateur at that, right? And if you're doing this all the time,
Yes,
yeah, I might get in touch, Dan. But
that would be great. Yeah.
yeah. So that's one. And then my second question has to do, it's around kind of updating of content. With OERs, does the same title stay static kind of, or do you just make modifications to that title ongoing? And the
Is there
question I'm asking is do you have editions of an OER book, for example? Like, is there a first edition made in, say, 2025, and then 2 years from now we adapt it a fair bit, and it's edition two, 2027? Would that be the way it works, or is it where you keep the same title and you just keep updating it and evergreening it?
so the way we would like it to work, ideally, is that we do have different editions.
Okay,
So one of the big OER publishers is OpenStax, and they publish lists of errata. So they're constantly improving their book based on feedback. But
right.
at some point, they say, well, like this is enough changes where it's a new book. So we're going to re-release it under the second edition.
Yep, that makes sense.
Unfortunately, yeah, in the OER world, these textbooks are adaptable, right? So people take the textbook, make minor changes, and they change the title. Makes it so hard for me to track down. Um, you know, is
Where it
this
started.
textbook the same as this one? What's changed, right? So it's yeah, it's a little complicated.
Okay, that helps a lot. Like I,
Awesome.
I think it makes a lot cleaner if you can keep the editions separate.
Yes. I've also seen quite a few people take existing American textbooks and they'll release the what they call the first Canadian edition. So they'll change this spelling and grammar, and they will change all the examples, like the contextual examples to Canadian locations, that type of thing.
Exactly. That's what happened with this commercial book. It was an
Okay,
American text, and the Canadian author, you know, changed out examples and things like that, like you
okay.
said. Yeah, cool.
Maybe I'll just add to address both of your questions. So far as figures, the OER project that I'm working on right now has something in every chapter, and it's quite an introductory text, and so I'm very in favor of having engaging, colorful materials that will,
Hmm.
keep students' attention.
Yep.
The philosophy textbook that we used as an example is a little bit higher level, and so delivering larger blocks of text is like appropriate.
Yep.
Um, the project I'm working on now has come with all of those figures are open access as well. However, we're going to redraw them for consistency and to,
Mhm.
to fit nicely with any sort of language changes that we're making during the adaptation process. So this is something that the press side is very familiar with and would be eager to support you through. So far as the additions, I just wanted to add that we are looking at sort of 3-year cycles at minimum, just because
Yep.
there's a demand for new projects coming into the pipeline. And if we need to revisit previous ones more often than every 3 years, it becomes a little bit tricky
It's
for us
not
to
viable.
juggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's just like commercial publishing. Like they've got a cycle with a set time, and
Mhm.
3 years would be fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Any
that's
other,
great. That's all for me
any
for
other?
now. So
Okay,
I'll,
thanks. Any other questions? Nice to see you here, Kathy. Kathy was previously basically doing Kyle's work and everyone else's work, right, Kathy?
It's wonderful to have Kyle on board.
It is. It's so great.
He's doing a fabulous job.
All right, I'm going to give us a couple more seconds if there's any burning questions. Thank you, Lawton and Jonathan, for attending. Like I said, this is recorded, so if we flew through anything too fast, you can always go back to the recording.
actually,
With
on
that,
that, hang on. One
yeah,
question, maybe a request. I found the slides very useful. Would it be
okay,
possible to share those?
absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
there's a
do
lot of
that.
information there that I would go to that before I go to a recording.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can flip through
Yeah.
it super easy. Sounds
Yeah.
good. I will send those to you right now.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Happy
Okay,
Open
thanks.
Education Week. Bye.